All right, Tina and Tracy. Yes, it's working. Yes, it's working again. All right, Tina, you're on mute, so don't. All right, great, excellent, excellent. Welcome, ladies.
There.
This session of Entrepreneurship Matters. I am so excited. It's all about technology and women, and we're so pleased to have both of you, amazing leaders in the tech field, and your stories are inspiring to me, so I know they will be inspiring to those who are watching on Facebook or in Zoom with us. So let me set us up, and then we're going to get right into the questions. So Entrepreneurship Matters is a weekly series that we've been hosting with local up and coming and established entrepreneurs. We know that successful entrepreneurs and successful businesses are not built overnight, that it takes undiluted passion, multiple failures, a lot of grit, and a long-term commitment to make it happen. Today, we are so pleased to have two women and leaders in the technology field speaking with us. And let me also give a shout out. I give this every time. This series was actually conceived by one of the amazing young people we have serving with us at Hopkins, Camry Moses. She's a senior at Western High School, dynamic woman. She's going to take over the world one day. And she came up with this. And so we're just blessed that her mind gave birth to this, and we're able to continue hosting this. This is our 11th week. So let me introduce you to Tina Williams-Koroma. She is the president and CEO of T-Secure, a cybersecurity risk management services company headquartered right here in Maryland. She's also an attorney, but also a computer scientist from UMBC, go Retrievers. And she has a JD from University of Maryland, Francis King Carey. We have two in common, 2 for 2. She is an amazing scientist. Prior to establishing her own company, she started her career at Lockheed Martin as a software developer and information system leadership development program. And she transitioned from there to the Unisys, where she graduated from the Leadership Excellence Acceleration Program, LEAP, and served in many different roles. She has a wealth of experience in the field. She also has provided legal research support to the Maryland Department of Business and Economic Development. And it's just a dynamic woman. I'm not going to steal all of your thunder, so I'm not going to say your whole email, your whole bio or your whole email yet. But thank you and welcome for having you. And Tracy, Tracy is the vice president and co-owner of Optimal Solutions Group and the co-founder of Revelo Software and the president and CEO of eGovernment Market LLC. That's a lot. She has over 25 years of experience in the federal government, contracting, information technology, and business advising space. She has a wealth of awards and accolades that she has achieved. But let me tell you about prior to joining Optimal, Ms. Turner won numerous awards at Northrop Grumman Information Technology, where she managed a startup of $100 million department focused on emerging markets and enterprise technologies. In 2016, she founded the company eGovernment Market. And in 2018, she co-founded Revelo Software LLC. She and her husband are also amazing philanthropists and have scholarships focused on the advancement of behavioral health, social science, and information science research. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Will be fun. So why don't we just jump right in? Let me start the questions with you, Tracy. I'm gonna give you a reprieve because you're a lawyer, so I'm gonna give you a couple minutes. I'll give you this lawyer sisterhood. What inspired you, Tracy, to be an entrepreneur?
I think for me, it started from childhood, just being around my dad, who was a dentist, a sole practitioner. My great-grandfather had a general store, family of farmers. And so for us, taking care of our families through entrepreneurship was just generally the way to go. And, you know, my dad, he would pick us up after school and we'd sit in his office and he'd have a Black Enterprise and Field and Stream on his table. That was the only thing we could read. And so we just started picking up on that. And I had an uncle also who was in the BE 100. And so I'd see his name in there and I'd track him each year. And so it became like a thing. But from the very early on start, I was always out there trying to pitch and sell something. And so it just seemed to be something that I enjoyed doing.
So you saw entrepreneurship as a career early.
I did, but I can tell you that my parents were like, you should be a teacher. And so, entrepreneurship wasn't really looked upon as like something you should do after you go to college. And so, but I just always felt like and I was inspired by some professors who encourage entrepreneurship as well.
Excellent. Tina, how did you get the entrepreneurship bug? What inspired you?
I didn't necessarily have my family per se, and my grandmother certainly had like a candy and kind of supply store in the back of her house. But there was just something attractive to me about creating my own opportunity. So I remember the first time that I created a venture. This is my entree into entrepreneurship. It's normally the story I tell around. There was a golf course on the military base where my dad was stationed. So I'm a military brat, and the golfers used to hit golf balls over into this dirty little creek. I was one of those dirty little kids that like to play around in all the mud and water. And I would see these golf balls, and I was like, when I was around 7, I looked at them and I said, I bet those golfers aren't going to want to come down here, like not where we would go as kids. And so I came up with this idea to wash off the golf balls and then sell them back with lemonade with the golfers. And so, that was a hit on Saturday. We made $20, so it was like kid rich. And then,
Kid rich.
Kid rich. Yeah. So yeah, that was my first foray into it. And then I started like a babysitting company and pet sitting. I had my little dot matrix printer posting, advertisements all around the military base where my dad was. And my parents didn't like having the dogs in the house that I was pet sitting. So that business didn't last too long. So, just little early things early on that I, learned and gleaned and just kind of continued in that vein, trying out different things as in adulthood.
It's so interesting both of you talk about this, because we've had young, children on here who are entrepreneurs, and they talk about the same thing, starting out selling jewelry, starting to sell the sodas, starting to sell candy, and have built businesses. And really almost every entrepreneur you talk to, it started at the ages you're talking about. Now we have a number of people on here every week, and this is a question we get, so I ask it before they can get to it. Try to preempt the question. How did you start your business? And tell us a little bit about your business, because they are so unique. We've not had anyone on has an information technology business. So if you could talk a little bit about that as you're going through, taking us through the steps. I'm going to take the notes and I'll summarize them. Don't worry about numbering them. I'll number them. Take us through step by step. How did you go about starting your business? Tracy, I'll start with you, then Tina.
Sure. Okay, so for me, I had always thought I'd be in a mail order business. And so people would send me an order and I put it in the mail and I sent it to them. And I just remember this woman coming. I worked as a teller when I was in college, and this woman gave me a check for $7.95, hundreds of them each week. And it was like she sold nuts. And I said, I just want to do that. I just want to bring those checks into the bank and deposit them every week. So anyway, being at Northrop Grumman, they gave me a great chance to I guess, kind of be an entrepreneur within the organization. As long as I didn't spend too much money and I didn't cause any losses, they were like, you just keep going, doing what you're doing. And so again, like you mentioned earlier, I built a $100 million unit. I thought I'd go off and start a technology firm. My husband is an economist, and he wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know that. So he was at Hopkins. He was a professor. And one day he came home and said, I'm starting a business. And so he went first. And then within a year, I joined him. And so for him, I think he was bringing in quite a bit of money as a professor. And he had to pay for his office and his team and everything. And he says, well, I can kind of do that for myself. And so he was really focused on state and local. And then I had that federal background. So I joined him right after. And we've been doing this almost 20 years now. After about 20 years, I said, I still have that technology bug. He and I had created some products. I started our software group. And so I spun off eGovMarket and Revello Software, just to keep that technology side, the roots that I've had for so many years, because I have all these ideas that I believe can transform the way people do business.
Mhm. And let me ask you this. So you took down two big points, but I know there's some in between there. So one, you talked about building the skills for entrepreneurship within your position at Northrop Grumman,
Mm-hmm.
and really learning how to build a business really within a business.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting idea and concept. And then the second was you got to work alongside an amazing partner who's your husband, in building a business that he started, and then you spun off and started your own two businesses. Can you talk a little bit about your business? What's the span of work that you do in the technology space?
So in research where my husband and I work together, there's a lot of systems you have to access with data. If you're a social scientist, you have to access a lot of different systems. And so we just developed a platform where you can do all of your work, collect data, analyze it, report it out within one platform. And so that was the beginning of Revello Software. And so we figured, we can take this and do this for other research firms. They don't have to struggle and try to put all these different pieces of software together and become IT people versus be the social scientists that they are. So anyway, that was Revello Software. And as we were spinning up Revello Software, I said, the marketplace, especially for small business, trying to reach decision makers is very difficult. So what if small businesses could be represented in a platform where people can search and say, I want a women-owned business who knows how to do editing or graphic design or translation, or I want a business in a hub zone, or I want a veteran-owned business out in the Midwest, so that these companies all don't have to try and call you, so you have to meet them, that you can actually find them based on their price and availability and the kind of socioeconomic factors you're looking for. So eGovMarket created a marketplace.
Wow. That's such an interesting concept. Wow. I don't think people knew about that.
eGovMarket, yeah. So our first services that we launched were editing, translation, and Section 508 compliance. So checking documents for accessibility compliance.
Wow. Amazing. Tina, how about you? How did you start? Take us through the steps you went through to start your business.
Yeah, so T-Secure is my third business foray. The first was right out of college doing software development with a partner of mine. And, through that experience, I just realized with the long hours required for entrepreneurship, I was doing that part-time while I was working full-time. I was like, I've got to be really passionate about the technology area I choose. And I'm not that passionate about this software development stuff. So we closed that out, and then I started a nonprofit. I've always been interested in economic empowerment of Pan-African communities, both here domestically and internationally. And so, some of the projects were really focused around economic empowerment and addressing certain, systemic issues that were impeding economic growth. And, with a nonprofit, I said, I'm spending so much time raising money and doing this and that, like I'm in a tech career. I should just start a for-profit company, and then I can give to and fund the things that I'm really passionate about. So I moved on from that and closed it out. So T-Secure, my latest venture, I started that. I started running it full-time in January 2014. And the way that came about is I was working for another small business, and one of the co-owners asked me, like, are you would you ever be interested in starting your own company? I was vice president, kind of an entrepreneur. I built up their civilian division, grew that practice. They were largely doing defense and intelligence work previously. When we had that discussion around would I ever be interested in starting my own company, I was like, yeah, I wanted to have another foray into it. I just hadn't chosen the time. And their thought was it would be great to have a woman-owned company to partner with and pursue other opportunities with. And so they became my first customer when I spun off and started working full-time for myself. So I continued doing some of the same services for them, but instead of in a W-2 capacity, it was in a B2B capacity. And then that also enabled me to get some initial past performance and start pursuing other contracts and hiring other employees. So that was how T-Secure got started. And I honestly think that that's a really great way, because sometimes like the biggest challenge in taking that first step into, being an entrepreneur, kind of a step away from that more sure or secure, paid every
W-2, the W-2.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Is that like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my mortgage and things like that. So that was the inception of T-Secure and how I initially got started.
So I heard a couple of things from what you said. One, you worked within the industry to gain the skills, the knowledge, skills, and ability to then perform on your own.
Yes.
Second thing you talked about, again, I mean, Tracy and Tina, y'all are like distant cousins. I would say. You both built a business within an existing business. So you learn the skills, entrepreneurial skills in your existing business. And then you talk about spinning off. And I thought what was really interesting about what you just said was you went from a W-2 to a business to business, and you were able to start a business with probably the best form of capital, which is a contract.
Exactly.
Is key for those are the two types of capital we don't often talk about, the customers and the contract. And then we're able to parlay that your past performance into new business. Excellent. Hope everyone's taking notes on their notepads, on their iPhones. Let me ask you this: as you've you both talked about capital and going out and getting capital, and I know we talked about this in our prep, Tracy, about venture capital. You and Tina are the first entrepreneurs that really have talked about going out for VC funding, venture capital funding at large. Can you take us through that process? What does that mean? There's some folks, they've never heard of venture capital. What is that? What is that process, and what does the landscape look like?
Well, for me, traditionally at the first company we started, we got our line of credit. You put your house up for collateral, and a lot of people don't know, but you pull down from your 401k and you start pulling from all these different places, and maybe even your parents. And so that was a more traditional path for us. And then, of course, landing that first contract, you need capital to hire all the people. I just want to say, first big contract, we had to hire like 30 or 40 people.
Wow.
And pay them for like 2 or 3 months before the clients started to kick in. So that was a different type of challenge, but at least you have accounts receivable. So you're going to get paid eventually. And in the VC side of things, if you have a technology, this world moves so quickly. Every 6 months, technology is going to another level. And so you can quickly be overtaken by another firm. You have to scale rapidly once you announce it and get it out on the market. In order to scale that quickly, get that type of advertising and name recognition, you need VC capital to grow. Right now, we have a team of developers, we have marketing people, we have communications people, we need a sales team, and we have to make that technology scalable so that you can take on hundreds of thousands of users if they decide to sign up. And so the venture capital world allows you to get there. So you have different levels. You have your seed capital when you're just kind of getting started out, and then you go through your A, B, and C series up to D series, where start to give you tens of millions. And sometimes people get, you get to an IPO stage and everyone is supposed to come out happy. And so that's what you call unicorns. And so for us in the field we're in.
Good thing we feature unicorns on here. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yourselves included.
So the DC area has some challenges in the sense that it's not necessarily a hotbed of VC capital funding. Usually New York and California get the bulk of the funds. And then being a female, ironically, females only get 3%. And that's an all-time high of all VC funds. Being African-American women, it's 0.006%. So it's an uphill battle. But I can just tell you, just on some of the conversations we've had, that in the last couple of years, funds are starting to say, hey, there's another world out there in terms of the types of things, industries they're funding. and the types of population segments they're willing to work with.
Mm-hmm. Tina, how about you? Have you gone for VC funding? And I know you had some discussion around that.
Yeah, so currently, I do want to make a distinction between just services businesses and then products-based businesses.
Sure.
So
Yes.
I was able to, largely T-Secure, the way I started the company, was focused largely on services. And so as I was able to start with that contract, it certainly required less capital up front, except that the kind of capital that you indicated, which is a contract with a client, right, that's bringing in revenue. So there was revenue in lieu of capital. With a product-based business, typically before you can get a revenue generating client, you have to have the product available. But to get to the product, you need capital to develop it, right? And so as we've gone throughout delivering services, I've found myself saying, you know what? It would be really great if I had this thing that could do this for us to service our clients. And it would be really great if I had this other thing that could do this to help our clients. And so, as I started thinking in that way, I started identifying gaps that I saw currently in the marketplace for what's available. And those gaps, in starting this year, I've started to say, hey, you know what? I can create the things. Like, I know exactly the problem that I'm trying to solve. I know the segment that I want to fit into. I know the types of customers that would be interested in things like this. And so that's where my innovation and product development ideas have come about. So my first foray has been largely seeking grant and non-dilutive funding. So that's where you're not trading necessarily equity for getting the capital, which is oftentimes what venture capitalists want. So I'm not opposed to venture, VC money, but I might walk in the path that maybe Tracy paves as she's, successful in that. I do know that another local entrepreneur here, I believe, has been successful in getting some venture capital in the Baltimore area. And so, I'll learn from them. But my first desire is to pursue and see if I can get grant funding to get to a minimum valuable product, an MVP, to get it into the marketplace, continue to assess and get customer feedback, and then potentially grow from there to pursue venture capital at a later stage.
Mm-hmm. And venture capital, ultimately, the capital is expended for equity in your company, some ownership stake.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, typically, yeah. And so the state of Maryland, there are other sources where they can, I guess, contribute to your company. We have something called the Maryland Industrial Partnerships Program, where whatever funds we put in, they match. And so even though, they're not giving us money more than we're giving ourselves, they don't have any ownership in it. So there are some alternative ways to attract funds. We've gotten past the MVP stage. We have clients, but the products we're at the point where we just want to be able to scale them and really good designs going. So the front ends that people interface with attract customers or engaging, good user interfaces and that type of thing. So we're a little bit down the road from where Tina is, but I can say just, in talking with Tina, that SBIR Small Business Innovative Research phase where you're looking for funding, whether it's from National Science Foundation or some other agencies, there's still an underrepresentation of certain populations, whether women and or minorities, and it's still a tough stage to be in, and so that's why we ended up skipping that stage. We got feedback what we were saying wasn't doable, it wasn't transformative enough, so we just kept doing it and financing it ourselves. And so for us, yes. Oh, I just want to say, just
no, you're good. You're good.
Because we had an existing business that had cash flow, we just converted that into the investment for our products for the earlier stages.
I see. So you allowed for the bill to come from already generated. Let me ask you this. So every week, Tracy and Tina, I'm gonna let you in on something. Bill Gates and Robert Smith and Oprah I'm really hoping Oprah. And Jeff Bezos, and some great venture funds like venture firms talk about come on, and they always want me to ask this question. Oh, and that reminds me, if you have questions, please put them in Facebook, the Zoom chat, or you can text them to 22333. So that's 2 2s and 3 3s. And then type JHUWL in the message. And then I'll be able to ask them of Tina and Tracy. So don't worry, I will get to your questions. But these are the questions from the billionaires and the venture funds. What should we do to support businesses like yours? What should we do in the marketplace? We are sitting at tables where we can move things around. We can set policies, we can set agendas. Can you tell them, because they're listening, can you tell them what they should be doing to support entrepreneurs like yourself? So Tracy, I'll start with you, and then Tina, I will go to you.
Well, for me,
remember Oprah's listening.
Yes, okay. Oprah's listening. I would say when you get invited to your investment groups, they're smaller groups of people who have networks, right? And so their networks are limited. And the model of success everyone's trying to go after is, some Harvard person, maybe even a Harvard dropout, some future Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. And everyone's trying to go back to that, but no one realizes that those people were not recognized as people who were going to succeed back then. So you have to actually start looking where everyone else is not looking, and everything about your background tells you that. And so it is more difficult to do more outreach to people outside your network. It is more effort, but the potential for return is phenomenal. And so I'd say grow your network, create mechanisms for people to reach you systematically if they're not going to be in your network.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Tina?
Yeah, I would pick up on that and get more specific and say, follow my company and me on social media. Your followers will follow you and encourage your comrades.
Follow.
Right.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Follow T-Secure. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We post updates there. We have different offerings. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is always customers. Going back to what you said, Alicia. So various boards of directors, they need to have a certain, especially of publicly traded companies, they need to have a certain cyber acumen. They have fiduciary responsibilities, and so training related to those boards, I'd say, they need it. If they're going to get cybersecurity training, look for businesses like T-Secure, who has a Site Skills training platform, and leverage us as your board trainers for cybersecurity. So customers are always helpful. Following us, making us a part of their network is something else that I would indicate. And also just regarding funding, look at the solutions that we have with an open mind. There are certain problems that we can identify in our communities, just like someone that lives in a rural community is probably better positioned to be able to really narrow in on and come up with solutions that could help solve issues and problems related to environmental issues and things like that someone that isn't from that same location is positioned to solve, and it needs to be solved just as much. So there's all kinds of problems within our nation, and you have entrepreneurs of color and from diverse communities that are particularly and specifically situated to solve those problems. So start looking for the entrepreneurs that come from the communities where you're trying to solve problems instead of trying to bring in outside, influence to solve. It always amazes me when it's, you're trying to solve a problem within a certain community or neighborhood. And I look around sometimes, and I'm like, are y'all from this community or this neighborhood? Like, how are you coming up with, like the solutions that are going to specifically address the problems in this community? Like, get the entrepreneurs from those communities and look to fund innovation that is coming out of those entrepreneurs that are coming from those communities.
Mm-hmm. No. These are, let me take it even down to another layer. So let me take another layer, because I took it to the billionaires, take it to the multimillionaires. and those who sit in the C-suite, those who sit at the board table. Tracy, that statistic you talked about, less than 3% of VC funding going to women-owned businesses, less than 1% going to Black and Latino, Latinx. I mean, you combine them and it still doesn't equal 1% of the VC or the venture capital funding. For folks who are at the table to change policy, right? Government elected officials, people in the C-suite, people at the board level, what would you say to them in order to address the challenges that you have? How could the road get a little easier for entrepreneurs such as yourself?
So I would say at the policy level, you have the Small Business Administration, for instance. And so while they focus on traditional business programs, women-owned, veteran-owned, hub zone types of businesses, they also have something called regional innovation clusters. And if you look at those clusters where they take high-tech firms and they take the federal, state, and local and the university and private resources and put them together, you still see a lot of lack of diversity, women, minorities, rural. And so at that policy level, they have the power to say, hey, we need to have more diversity within these types of clusters. And then if you're looking at, let's say, the state of Maryland, I believe 51% of the students now are students of color. And so you have this future generation coming up, and the state needs to spend more money and time in cultivating entrepreneurship with those students and letting there be a path so that the state is doing more business with minority businesses, and not so much like people get caught up into this quota kind of thing. It's not really about that. It's just having the openness of mind of diversifying the same vendors you work with all the time. You'll find that 80% of the dollars go to a small group of vendors, regardless if you're a minority or not. It takes more effort to bring more people in. But you find that when you bring more people in, you get better pricing, you get better value, you get better service. It does take more effort, I agree, but the return is tremendous. So I do think the state has a small business reserve and they have an MBE program, but I think they need to stop looking at it just in terms of that, but just in terms of a better business practice to the state to get better value.
Excellent, excellent. Tina, what would you say?
Yeah, I think the same sort of intentionality that was applied with policies that disenfranchised entrepreneurs and of color, that same level of intentionality needs to be applied at a policy level to enfranchise those communities. So, for example, there's common discussions that happen around redlining, right? And making different decisions around who would receive funding from a banking perspective and who wouldn't. And so if those kinds of decisions could be made from a few decades and things like that ago, we have even more data now to inform efforts to be intentional about doing the exact opposite. Instead of disenfranchising, we have even more data available to us to be intentional about correcting what was done in the past and creating policies that are intentional about restoring that to close some of the racial equity around banking, finance, lending. There's still ongoing practices around how buildings in historically and currently Black communities get valued by banks. If there's not a certain appraised value of that real estate, then it's hard to get the financing to restore that infrastructure. So even when you have Black entrepreneurs and builders and things like that wanting to not only restore architecture, but use that as a means to build up blighted communities and communities of color, they're not able to get the funding and the finances for that. And those numbers and those statistics, they are there in terms of the trends that banks and other institutions are taking. And so you have entrepreneurs that are willing to innovate, but there needs a close look at how financing the policies, and not just the policies on paper. In law, there's what's called it's almost like a discrimination by outcome, even if discrimination isn't explicitly written into the laws, right? Like, oh, only these people get, this kind of benefit.
Speak like a lawyer.
Yeah, right, right. Just a little, right. I'm brushing off that law degree. But yeah. It's like the outcomes, though, can be discriminatory. So as we create policy, we need to be like, my advice, my input would be, take a close look at what's being produced and the outcomes of those policies and of those decisions. And if you're continuing to see inequities, you need to take a second look at that policy and make sure you have the right stakeholders, diverse stakeholders at the table as policies are being created, so that they are data-driven, informed policies that can benefit equitably communities and entrepreneurs.
No, and to your point, I think the point that both of you have made, as you have talked about, we're going to get into this in just a second, about pivots that you may have made during COVID, because we have a number of business owners on here who are pivoting during COVID, trying to make that. But what you talked about is that when we realize a policy isn't creating an outcome that is desired, we need not hold on to that policy like a little newborn baby that we created. We got to figure out how to pivot,
right?
And make the mistake, because it's a mistake. We're humans, and move into a different direction. Let me ask you this, both of you. What is your greatest accomplishment? So we talked about, and I know I'm going to get kids and I'm going to get all those answers, because also what you talk about, being a business owner with children. But how have you, what's your greatest accomplishment for yourselves?
Well, I was going to say my kids.
No, those are beautiful. Yes, you can say your kids. You can say your kids. Don't let me take that away from you. They are your greatest, yes.
But I would say that the 20 years of success we've had with Optimal Solutions Group, becoming a more innovative public policy research firm. Typically, research is done where you're looking 5 years ago, collecting data, trying to figure out what's going on, and everybody's moved on. So our whole thing is to enable real-time data-driven decision-making. And so having a strong research team, having a strong software development group, having software used across 50 countries around the world. That's one of my favorite projects. And we also report on K through 12 education for the nation's report card. And we've been doing that since 2007. And so for me, it's a compilation of those iterative kind of successes over the years that I think I look back and I say, you know what, we were in a really niche space, social policy research, not a lot of firms in that space, enabling real-time data-driven decision-making, affecting public policy, sometimes in economic development, sometimes in education, sometimes in health. But really the fact that we're able to bring technology to all of those different aspects of public policy and actually produce reports that were used to actually empower people with information to make changes.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I'm so proud of you, Tracy. I mean, seriously, it makes my heart. I mean, it brings me so much joy to see you in that space. Tina as well. I mean, y'all are just balls of joy. Tina, what's your greatest accomplishment?
Yeah, I think it's really around, I indicated that I moved from being running a nonprofit to a for-profit, and just figuring I could leverage, what happens in a for-profit capacity to really, support the things that I'm passionate about. And I think that for me, that is my greatest accomplishment, is I have made different moves in my career through mentoring. I have been able to help position others to get into careers in cybersecurity. It is such, it just really brings my day when I hear about someone, like one young lady, she's like, I got a job with the FBI doing cyber. And I remember talking to her and kind of mentoring her as she was, going through college. And sometimes I even forget who I've had conversations with or sat down with, because sometimes it's not always the long-term, formal mentoring, but it's a conversation, or I spoke at an event and, just had a dialogue and provided some guidance to someone. And then they'll write me back and say, I got a job, I started my career here, or, I've started my company. And, I just, as I go along, I always say, I can get people as far as I've gotten. And that's very important to me. So others that are in my community, just really trying to just open doors where I can, provide the advice and input. So for me, like that's my greatest accomplishment, and I want it to be an ongoing accomplishment. Like that's my motivation for pushing hard. When I get tired, I want to get further, because my notion is that I can get people as far as I've gotten, and I can help open doors up to this point, because that's where I've gotten, and I want to continue in doing that. But that's what I would say is my greatest success so far, and I look forward to continuing to be my greatest success.
Amazing, amazing. You know, every time we get those, both of your answers thematically are like almost on every single one. I wonder if we all talk to each other. Y'all have like a party, y'all talk to each other, you get together, you understand what you're gonna answer. No, it's what you just talked about, really creating an ecosystem where others are able to thrive alongside you is beautiful. Let me ask you this, and then I'm going to start getting into the questions. So don't worry, I am seeing your questions. So you can still leave them on Facebook and Zoom chat, as well as texting them to 22333 and texting JHUWL in the comment. Let me ask you, what's your long-term vision for your companies? And Tracy, you have 3, if I counted them right.
So yes, so for Optimal, we definitely want to continue the success we've had. We have really strong customers, and we're making a difference. And like Tina mentioned, it is wonderful when someone calls you back and they say they're a professor or they're a director somewhere. We have one employee who's in Ghana, and she started this whole young society of people who are dedicated towards bringing her country up. And so those are wonderful stories, and you always like to hear those, and you like to hear back from the scholarship recipients and see how they're doing. So I think all that's great. But for Optimal, yes, we're going to continue the course. We have good long-term customers. For Revelo Software, we're seeking VC funding because we have a group of people who are set to run that company as a software firm. And then for eGov Market, the platform is, if you think of Amazon, how you sell products, this is basically Amazon for services. And so to see that one grow as well. And I think over time, I'm going to move over to eGov Market to take that over full time. And Mark is going to continue as the chief economist and president at Optimal. And so I think eventually probably Revelo will probably exit out, maybe sell to another firm who's interested in incorporating in their product line. And so those are kind of like the long-term goals for all of them. You know, like Tina says, I feel like I don't have enough time. And so I want to, I've been doing this for 25 years. And so even though I've had a lot of success with Optimal, I really want to see Revelo and eGov Market take off in this, time that I'm working on now.
Excellent, excellent. Tina, how about you? What's next?
Yeah. So
Sure.
I definitely want to continue growing the strength of T-Secure from a services and a solutions perspective. And some of the solutions actually spin them off as they get some life. As Tracy, mentioned, where she used some of the capital from Optimal Solutions to be able to fund initially some of the solutions. We were able to fund and launch our training platform, SciSkills. And a couple of the other innovations that we have teed up. I'd like those to get to the point where, they can take a life of their own, and I can, spin those off product companies and be able to successfully exit from those. But as we continue with the services, I think a lot of the ideas and concepts and innovations that are possible, that's what really fuels those. And so I'd like to continue, being a serial entrepreneur and being able to leverage just some of the concepts and needs that we see from a services capacity to continue developing solutions that are meaningful to the marketplace, and build those up, sell them off, and or acquire, So yeah, I just want to be an entrepreneur for a long time.
We do too. Now let me ask, so I've got a couple of things. First of all, people giving you shout outs. They just thank you and we're proud of you. So we're getting a lot of those that love fest. So I know you, Tina and Tracy, appreciate that. Let me ask you this. The first question that we received on Poll Everywhere was, thank you for featuring these two amazing entrepreneurs. Technology requires constant innovation. How do you both stay motivated to do so? Tracy?
Well, for me, I mean, I read nothing but technology magazines, and I love to do other.
Interesting.
But it's like, for me, it's like what I live and breathe, and so
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't know how to not be motivated by it, and so definitely looking at what the market's doing, what competitors are doing, and I'm like, okay, I want a little bit of that, I want a little bit of that, but this is what I'm going to do better. And so for me, I don't even know if I can cut it off.
What sort of technology magazines do you recommend for folks?
Well, Wired
It's not a commercial.
It's okay. So of course, Wired is like the go-to for everyone, and then everybody always reads about Inc. And we talked about accomplishments as I was talking about some of the entrepreneurial magazines I had read, but Inc. 500 was one I always wanted to be in. So we made the Inc. 500. We were like number 147.
Wow.
And so that was like a big goal. And so, I saw all of those kind of goal setting kind of magazines I'll kind of follow. And so, and so I think that, but I don't just do technology. If you look at my reading list, you probably can't tell what thing I like the most, because I try to read everything, because somehow they're all interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
I love to read actually about Elon Musk and the things that he's developing, because he's doing lots of different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How about you, Tina? How do you stay motivated?
Yeah, I think a big part of that is just what I mentioned with regard to services and our clients is I see different ways that we could better or more efficiently service our clients. Then that's what really spurs my mind into, additional ideas. And my growth team, will tell you, it's just like, oh my gosh, what does Tina come up with today? It's just like, I have to really discipline myself to make sure that I stay focused, for okay, Tina, stay on this path. Like, maybe in a few years you can pick up this other path. But I think when you're, constantly looking for ways just to, better provide services to your customers or to grow, I think that in and of itself kind of spurs that mindset. And as Tracy said, I do enjoy reading, and my reading list, Firefox is my favorite browser. And so they have this new kind of recommendations on like readings, right? And I love their curated list. It's from like technology to economics to societal events to history. And I too, I see the relationships, it's just like, oh my gosh, historically that happened and that's connected to this and this is happening now. And this is how this technology solution could possibly solve that problem. And, so I get all of these ideas from just like, really looking at problems, right? Like it's like, that's what innovation should be doing. It should be solving problems. And so like what spurs me is just looking at like the issues and thinking of the ways that technology and things like that could solve those solutions.
Excellent. Next question we received. I want to do it all by myself because I know I can count on myself. Should I be open to collaboration and partnerships for my business?
You have to be.
Yes.
And
yes.
You will fail with some people, relying on some people, and then the sooner you cut that off and find the right fit for you, the better. Sometimes you try to make it work, but you have to be compatible with someone else in order to have a system. Growing a business is all about producing reproducible actions so you can keep organizing and giving the vision to the company. But if you're doing everything yourself, you won't have that vision.
Yeah. It's hard to scale. But like Tracy said, like I wrote a blog about the power and peril of partnership. And that's not just in business, but in marriage as well. Like who you choose to partner with, and you'll see business articles about this all the time. Who you choose to partner with can make or break, your idea. So certainly choose wisely, but do choose, right? Partners and, a lot of the growth of T-Secure has come through like former colleagues I used to work with. They go to other companies and then their company needs certain services and they make introductions and things like that. So, sometimes it's not always formal partnerships per se, like, from day one. I don't have like a partner in my company. I own the company, but I do strategically bring different people in and incentivize growth. So, like as we grow, so does your bank account, so,
Yes.
so there's just different ways, but yeah, partnership and working with other people and relying on them, just get good at screening, and you will make mistakes, but, cut quick when it doesn't work out. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Are there professional organizations, we received this, that you are members of and which is most beneficial to you? Do you have anything?
Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, well, for me, just being a part of the University System of Maryland has been a big thing. So being on the board of trustees in College Park and a regent for the university system, being on the TEDCO boards has really like formed a huge network for me that I probably otherwise would have not have connected to. Then I'm, like I'm sure Tina is in a bunch of professional organizations with all of her credentials. But W3C is like the World Wide Web Consortium, and we have accessibility professionals. We're part of the Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute. They call it CMMI level maturity. So getting all the information and feedback from those. So like our reading, I did get different inputs. Of course you have your church and your community, but as a matter of fact, my community and church members are the ones who have been my professional mentors early on. There's a Gary Murray, who owned an IT firm years ago, is probably one of the most instrumental entrepreneurs in my history. But I want to say the one thing he always said to me, there are 3 factors of success. And I didn't want to get off this call today without saying these 3 things.
Hold on, we're gonna put these up. Sam,
this is the secret right here.
Nuggets.
Three things.
Come on, give
Number one, be on time.
Be on time.
Get there early. He would be very upset if you were not there on time. And so the other thing is be grateful. Like,
be grateful.
This is pretty basic, right? But having a happy heart and an open mind and just being there that day and appreciating the day you're in makes a big difference. You see things differently. And the third thing is add value. So people say, well, how did you get on all those boards? And I have to tell them, I say, I don't even know. I didn't know this board existed. And but I think it's because I speak up and I speak from I think a semi-informed perspective, because I read so much and I have opinions and thoughts and I'm willing to share them if I think they're going to be productive. So always add value wherever you are.
Be on time, be early, grateful, and add value. The 3 steps. Excellent. Golden nuggets. You are so right.
I wrote that down too. Yeah. Take me back to what the original question was, though. Sorry.
What professional are you in? Professional organizations that are beneficial to you?
Okay. Yes. I would definitely agree. The University System of Maryland has been phenomenal. I'm a product of it. I've stayed in touch with UMBC, working some with Bowie State now, and just a lot of the universities, both from the talent that they produce. I'm biased, but they become colleagues and employees. So certainly the university system, that's very helpful. I'd also say as Tracy indicated, the boards that I'm a member on, you really make some really great relationships and you learn a lot. So the TEDCO board of directors, the Baltimore County Department of Economic and Workforce Development, a nonprofit called the Chill Station, which works in giving entrepreneurial opportunities to those coming out of jail and prison, so that they can rebuild their lives economically. I'm really excited about joining that board, because I'm able to do things that I'm passionate about and impact a community that I'm very passionate about. I also think from a cybersecurity perspective, early on in my career, the Information Systems Security Association, ISSA, was really a great organization for me to be a part of, because I was able to get my training for my CISSP certification, and their approach to training wasn't like the boot camp kind of approach. I can't, sitting me down for a week and like fire hosing me with information for 40 hours is not an effective way for me to retain information. So they had each week they had it so that an expert in each of the core bodies of knowledge areas in cybersecurity would come in and teach it. I could learn it.
Wow.
Took an exam, and so I was able to pass that very difficult exam the first time, which is not always the case. And I think a big part of that was just the approach that ISSA took in training its members.
Excellent. Let me do rapid. I was having so much fun with y'all. I did not realize this hour is almost gone. Okay, so this is one question. What companies do you think are it? Now, you name your company and then name some other company in the IT space that you think are doing it, that are it. Tracy, why don't you start?
Well, for me, definitely Tesla, just because, they've transformed transportation. We're not thinking about using gas. They're putting rockets up there. We're thinking about going to Mars. I mean, they're doing solar. I mean, there's just so many different things that they cover. But I want to say to the young people out there and anyone else out there, this is a beautiful time of change for all of us. We're going to be able to transform and pivot, and there's so much opportunity out there. I just think about, if I could do this all over again, I would do compostable packaging. I mean, right now our plastic is nowhere to go.
I like it.
China's not taking it. There's so much green stuff they can do in terms of rebuilding communities, reinventing their businesses. We're not going to be the same after all of this. Having more outdoor kind of venues, delivery of their services, how they conduct their services. There's so much out there, and anybody want to listen, they can email me and I will share my ideas with them.
Oh, don't worry. Before we go, we're going to get your email, all your stuff out to people. How about you, Tina? What would you say?
Yeah, I'm actually going to name a local one, Fixt, F-I-X-T, with Luke.
They just got sold.
Yeah, I know.
First company?
Yeah.
I know. We're trying to have on the shop. He's so busy. He can't. He just got bought by, I can't even remember the company.
Yeah, I can't either, but I remember reading it, and I when he was on the board with TEDCO, like I just remember like getting, informal mentorship and things like that from him, and the things that he did. And even in reading, like, how they prepared and researched and understood their market and, created solutions around that. Like for me, like it's reachable because it's like, oh, I know the guy that did that, and I just think it's phenomenal to be able to, to really see like someone that read his customer base really well, came up with like a secure way in which to, fix mobile technology. So he has a cybersecurity background as well. So that's, certainly very intriguing to me that, he was able to come up with something like that. So yeah, to have had a successful exit in the way that he did, I definitely say, he got it, he's getting it, and that's an inspiration for me.
Okay. All right. We have 2 minutes, but I'm going to give you this last question so they can't say I didn't give all the questions. People believe that IT is a COVID-proof business. Is that true?
No.
No. Okay.
That's my answer. Yeah.
No, Tracy, you COVID? Is it COVID-proof?
No.
No. Okay.
Some technologies will do well under COVID. We're going to eventually go back to work. And so I think there are opportunities that are a result of COVID, but we need to think long-term, future pandemics, future things that how we'll be living.
Yeah. Let me get you to wrap up while we all wrap up. First of all, let me just say thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Tina, not just for coming on this webinar series, but for who you are as business leaders. There was someone asked, they did say, do y'all have job openings? So
yes, Yes.
Yes, oh, that's it. This
Yes.
might be, hey,
Yes.
I asked your question, get your job.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. So they can, all right. So how can they get in contact with you, Tracy? People want to follow you, get your business. How can they get in contact with you?
So at our Optimal site, it's jobs@optimalsolutionsgroup.com. If you go to our website, we have our current job openings. And so eGov Market and Revello, we don't have any listings open, but if you just email me at jobs@optimalsolutionsgroup, I can take a look and see if you're a good fit for the other companies as well.
Okay. And how can people who, individuals, how can they talk around, how can they get in touch with you just to like even procure your business?
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn is one way, and I'm on the jobs email alias. So if they email me at jobs, I don't want to give my personal email out.
No, your website, your Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you'll get 400.
Yes, I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and but the best way to reach me, I think, because a lot of people are not on all those different social media platforms, is if you just email the jobs alias, they can reach me.
Okay, and your website is www.optimalsolutionsgroup.com, correct?
That's right.
Excellent, excellent. How about you, Tina? How can people get in contact with you?
Yes, so you can contact me on LinkedIn. So you can find Tina Williams-Koroma on LinkedIn, but even more, connect with and follow us on T-Secure, TCECURE on LinkedIn and Facebook. And let's see, from an email perspective, I don't mind, my box is completely flooded. It's probably better to send me a message through LinkedIn. That's less flooded than my inbox, but tina.williams@tsecure.com is there. But again, like you probably have more success if you did it via LinkedIn. So yeah, that's Tina and T-Secure. That's how you can reach me.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Next week, we're going to have some more entrepreneurs on. We're going to be talking about bookstores, lovers. So we had Emma Snyder, who's the owner of the Ivy Bookshop and Bird in Hand. We also will have Tina Hamilton, who's the owner of Urban Reads. You do not want to miss this. Please follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them. Email us at jhconnects@jhu.edu. Want to thank our two amazing entrepreneurs, as well as Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins Local, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business, and the Warnock Foundation. So thank you all and have a great day. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Tina, so much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.